Hi, I'm Michael. Welcome to Beyond the Screenplay, the podcast where each episode we do a conversational deep dive analysis into a film. Today, we are kicking off the public part of our sequel summer season as we talk about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, the 2024 film written by George Miller and Nico Lathoris, directed by George Miller. I'm joined by the Beyond the Screenplay team, Trisha Rand.
Hello, everyone.
Brian Bittner.
Do you have what it takes to make it epic?
And Alex Calleros.
Hi.
All right, so we are back. Last week, we did kind of a soft launch of our sequel summer season. We talked about Inside Out 2. That was a lot of fun. And so that episode lives over on the Beyond the Screenplay Patreon. And today, we're talking about Furiosa, the prequel to the, I don't know, Brian's going to have to explain the chronology of all these films to me in a minute. But it's,
well, you know the character who wasn't a child in the previous movie? That's her.
Yes, right. Okay, that's right. Great. So we're talking about that. Next week, we're talking about A Quiet Place Day One, which Trisha is super excited about.
Ha ha.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun summer talking about lots of sequels and lots of the originals that precede the sequels and the originals that succeed the prequels. And we're going to talk about Twister, which I'm excited about. Most important.
You skip straight to the punchline here.
Yeah. Okay, so Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So listeners who have listened to our Fury Road episode, which is also on the Beyond the Screenplay Patreon, may recall that I was not what one would call a fan of Fury Road. I've been trying to think about even how to describe my experience of it. I've been thinking about noise canceling headphones. So, there's like
the opposite of that.
Right. So when a sound plays, right, there's like a wave that happens, and noise canceling headphones play the opposite wave and it cancels it. So it's just nothing. And I feel like the things that resonate with me in movies are exactly inverse of Fury Road. So watching it, I just felt absolutely nothing for 2 hours. So not a huge fan of that one. So I was curious going into Furiosa. I like the Charlize Theron character. I was like, all right, yeah, like if you're going to do a thing that will pull me back in, maybe it's this. Interesting that it was a prequel, but like super low expectations. And overall, I think I enjoyed myself. I certainly enjoyed myself more than Fury Road. And I know there's probably not a lot of people that feel that way. I'm one of those. There's dozens of us, dozens. But also this movie does some really interesting things. And I had several issues with it also. So structurally, it's a very different movie. There's a lot more backstory and world building, partially, I think, because this movie takes place over such a longer time period than the first movie does. And then also just like the style and approach to action, like what changed and what stayed the same, and really just the visual effects I want to talk about because they are very noticeable in this movie. And I want to kind of dive in and try to figure out what happened. So that's me with this movie. Overall, I think I enjoyed myself more than feeling nothing, which is how I felt in the first one.
Wow. Okay.
Brian, how about you?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I liked Fury Road when I first saw it, but I wasn't excited by it. Like I didn't really want to see it. My friend wanted to see it. And then I was like, oh, that was really well done for something that just feels like not quite my taste. And then I did eventually get into that movie over the like watching it a second time and talking about it with you guys and everything. And I was like, oh no, I do think this movie is really good. I really like it. I have the file of it saved so that whenever I want to test a sound system, I can just play like the when she goes rogue in like 20 some minutes in. You know, I think it's just a really fun movie to watch. And then it's like, you know, having watched it a couple times now, I'm like, oh yeah, there's theme, there's stuff. There's like, this movie's actually doing stuff that I feel like it's hard for my brain, especially to like get the first time I'm watching a insane movie like that. So point of all that is then I've since like watched the original trilogy. So I was going into Furiosa being like, oh yeah, I am actually more interested in another installment in this world than I would have been previously. And then the first trailer came out, and I was like, why does this look so fake compared to the first one, you know? And then I did read that like George Miller's older, they were using more, you know, volumes and that kind of thing. So I thought, okay, so it's just not going to necessarily have that same feel of just everything looks so sort of real, like it's happening, but it can't possibly be, you know, in the first movie. And then finally seeing it, I think there's a little bit of both there. There are these moments like the guys go up in the parachutes and the camera goes from one around to the other, and I'm just like, yes, like this is so like you pulled all this off. And then there are moments where it just looks like, oh, that's just a screen behind you, and that's just an actor or whatever, you know. But I think all in all, it feels pretty cohesive. Story-wise, I want to talk about Inside Out 2 for a second, because I mentioned last week that like both these movies, first of all, both these movies came out a few weeks apart, and they are follow-ups to movies that came out a few weeks apart 9 years ago, which is strange. And for like the sequels to be that long and then happen to be right next to each other. But both movies, it was like the first 20 minutes, and by both I mean Inside Out 2 and Furiosa. The first 20 minutes, I was just like, yes, 100%. Oh my God, like you're doing everything. And I do think both these prequels, like they nail the texture and the feel of the original films. Like that's something that I always talk about, where it's just like, why doesn't this even like feel like it belongs in this story? Well, I think both of these are like, this feels like X franchise. But then story-wise, like around the second act, just starting to kind of feel like, I feel a little disengaged and I'm not really sure why. And just feeling like, good job, you made a really good movie. But for me personally, I just kind of lost it a little bit along the way. And by the end, just feeling like, I don't know if I feel fully satisfied. Didn't expect ATJ to not show up for an hour into the movie, right? So like that's like a weird, we're just not used to that structurally kind of thing. So I did an experiment today, which was I started the movie from when she shows up. So part 3, the stowaway, just to see kind of what that felt like watching it from there to the end, because I already have the context for what happens before then. And then I did go back and watch the first hour. But it was weird because it's like emotionally it doesn't work at all because you don't have the first hour for context, right? But I was like, just structurally, how does it feel? And it felt like off to the races right away. Like we meet Tom Burke and we're going and this and da 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 da. And then it still kind of had this feeling where it just sort of felt like it feels episodic in a way, where I'm like, rather than everything building towards this big climax, it's like, okay, we're going to fade to black and then we're going to tell this story over here. And then eventually they're going to meet up and then we're going to kind of cut over here. And then eventually this thing's going to happen. So it was weird that it still felt that way, cutting out the first hour of the movie. It still felt like, oh, why isn't it quite doing all the things? So there's a lot to talk about there. It makes me think about the conversation we've had with like Dune and Oppenheimer of like, what if you didn't have to tell the movie as a movie? Like, what if it could be 2 movies? What if it could be you watched the first hour at home and then you went and saw, you know, a longer version of the last 90 minutes in the theater? Or what if you went and saw 2 movies with an intermission, you know, that were 2 halves of the story? Whatever it is, there's something about the structure here that I feel like is a detriment to the movie. But I still generally really like everything that's here.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about and unpack, and I feel like the board is getting set in a fun way. There's a lot. I'm just gonna let's fill up the board. Trisha, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I could talk for hours. I'm just gonna talk for the one that we're all here together to talk. But Fury Road is one of my favorite movies. It was my number 1 movie of the teens. Like, I love Fury Road. The experience of watching it in the theater, it's so visceral, it's so entertaining, exciting, propulsive. Like, it just blasts you out through the back of your seat. It's like kinetic and crazy, and I love it. Like, I just love it. And then I was excited about this movie, but cautious. I didn't watch any trailers because I didn't want to know. I try to avoid watching all trailers these days because the world is bad. We should undo trailers. Like, just stop doing them, everybody. It's infuriating. But I was like, obviously I'm going to see this and I'm excited about it and cautiously optimistic. I'm also going to be real at the outset that although I really respect Anya Taylor-Joy as an actor, she's never done a lot for me personally. And so there's a warmth to Charlize Theron that I don't really feel from her generally in her performances from Anya Taylor-Joy. And so I was like also reserved for that reason. However, I love Tom Burke. I love everything that Tom Burke does is like gold to me. So I was
Orson Welles from Mank.
An incredible Orson Welles from Mank, but also I know him from The Souvenir, which is one of his absolute best, which I've talked about on the show before. But anyway, so my experience of watching this was very entertained. The structure we have to talk about. This movie is long. It's long. And it covers so much ground. And the last movie took place in 3 days. And this movie covers 15 years worth of time. And it doesn't have the same momentum or trajectory, clear goals. There's a lot of like loose ends that are confusing to me, or allegories that are kind of not fully paid off or explored in the way that I thought they would be. And I don't know, it feels messy overall is what I would say. Now, is it still incredibly cinematic? Absolutely. Like, is it still jaw-dropping in some spots? 100%. And overall compelling as a piece of this story world. But overall, origin stories kind of don't scratch my itch. You all know how I feel about Solo. And like, I don't know, there wasn't a lot. There were some interesting things here, but there weren't any ideas that bowled me over. There were some images that bowled me over and some sounds and music and, some other kinds of choices that I really, really appreciated. But I don't know if it doesn't have the same like sprinkle of magic on it to me that Fury Road does. And so, I give it an overall good grade. But obviously the only place to go from Fury Road is down. So I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that George Miller couldn't make a sequel. I know that they were talking about Fury Road sequels. Furiosa has done very poorly at the box office. And like to a confusing degree. Like finishing really behind the Garfield movie, confusing. And a lot of people have tried to like pull that apart. Like, what's going on? Why didn't people go see Furiosa? And I'm not here to solve that mystery. I have a couple of theories, but I don't know if there's a way to know. But I do think it does kind of put maybe more Mad Max movies into jeopardy just with the box office performance. They did just drop it on streaming as of this podcast being released. So if you're listening to us talk about this, you can go watch Furiosa right now. It'll be out on streaming and hopefully it can make up some money now that it's being out. But I don't know. It's interestingly positioned in a variety of ways. And I think that that's definitely worth discussing.
Yeah, it is very puzzling. I was expecting this movie to do extremely well, regardless of how
everybody was.
Right. And so
it's got an Avenger in it.
Right. And it's a sequel to an extremely popular movie that people like.
It's like action franchise. Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have already said so much that I resonate with. It was interesting. Yeah, I was thinking about you, Michael, the other day because I did rewatch Mad Max Fury Road. And I loved it. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good because it's just, regardless of, I guess, like, I'm not crazy about all the aesthetics of the world, but just the dynamics and the propulsion and the just gusto that movie has. It, like, as you said, Trisha, like bowls me over. And the way that this insane universe does function really well as allegory, and there's just strong themes, strong ways to read everything as symbol, as meaning in this otherwise wacky 80s Australian metal world. And it's just, I don't know, yeah, it's just watching it again, I missed so much of like the operatic nature of this of Fury Road, the way that with Furiosa, I felt like the movie was kind of asking for my patience. Whereas Fury Road is like, sit back, strap in, we got you. You're on a roller coaster ride. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Whereas Furiosa is like, fade to black, chapter 5 now. Oh, another chapter
title.
Yeah. And it reminded me of kind of more of like a latter day Tarantino movie or something, where it's just like, I am an auteur and there's going to be 6 or 7 chapters or whatever in my movie. And I'm not going to worry about story structure. You're here for my auteurness and like behold my chapters and my scenes. My chapters are going to be just like a self-contained segment, may or may not like work structurally, but who cares? It's, this is the thing. So yeah, they kind of run me the wrong way in that way. Cause I think I like movies that are well made that also just go down easy, and that's what Fury Road was for me. Was it just, it's not asking a lot of me. I get to just have fun. And I think there's a little bit of almost resentment when it's like an action movie or a big blockbuster movie is kind of trying to have it both ways of, we're going to try to give you thrills and yet also ask of you, I don't know, kind of patience where patience isn't warranted. Anyway, so that was a little bit my experience with this movie, was just frustration at, we got this like impeccably edited, rhythmic, musical experience last time. And I guess in some ways I respect George Miller for not even attempting to repeat that and doing something different. And I guess it just wasn't, this world and these characters and these actors weren't compelling enough to me without that musical, rhythmic, roller coaster operatic experience. But it was interesting to look at the differences in style. And I think somebody I saw somebody post on Twitter, like mini oneers. Like, he's not quite doing like the Spielberg oneer in this movie, but he's a lot of mini oneers, which are just, in Mad Max, the editing is what it's all about. It's all about just the perfect cuts on the perfect moments in each shot to give you that just like clear line through the action. And in this film, there's a lot of these longer shots, wider shots, letting the action play out in frame, creating a lot more noticeable visual effects, a lot more people that are obviously just digital doubles. But I respect that also in some ways. It's just like, you're never going to make Fury Road again, so may as well experiment formally. So those are all my scattered thoughts in this movie. But I just want to circle back again to saying, God damn, Fury Road is an amazing action movie. It's
you,
so
Alex.
thoroughly enjoyable. I am just still a little bit surprised that even upon repeat viewings, Michael Tucker feels nothing when he watches it.
Yeah,
but to each his own.
There were a couple of incorrect Fury Road takes here at the top of the episode. Just wanted to clear those out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so also to be clear, I think it's always good to reestablish that like liking a thing and thinking a thing is good are different things. I don't think Fury Road is a bad movie. It's just not for me. I think it's a good movie and does a lot of really cool things that I think it was interesting to see those things feel absent as well. And that sort of the allegorical structural stuff that you guys are bringing up, I think is an interesting place to start, where it feels like the structure of Fury Road is the narrative in so many ways.
Yep.
And that was unique and like a cool foundational thing. And it was interesting to see it so abandoned in this movie.
Yeah. The structure of Fury Road is so simple. And we've talked time and time again on this show about how a simple plot structure and plot trajectory covers a multitude of sins and gives you so much freedom to play and do other things elsewhere. Fury Road is literally like Furiosa takes that war rig, she drives it way the hell out into the middle of the desert. She gets there and doesn't find what she wants, and she drives it all the way the hell back. And that is that movie. Like, it is so, so, so simple. And that's, again, why it sort of works on this thematic, allegorical level. It's about a quest. It's this like mythic story about a quest, a voyage and return, right? It's like an ancient story structure. And there are, complications along the way because she has passengers and there are obstacles. Mm-hmm. But overall, again, there's this clear goal. There are clear obstacles. There is a clear dramatic question. There's always a trajectory. Always know who our person is, where we're going and why, and what the urgency is and what's in the way. And like, it's just so crystal clear. And from the moment this movie gets started, Furiosa, the character, gets snatched right out of her home and a bunch of stuff happens to her for like 2 hours. And she eventually starts to do some things, right? Like, or I guess, as you pointed out, Brian, like chapter 3, the stowaway when Anya Taylor-Joy finally starts driving the movie. But once that happens, she is making choices, but the choices she's making, why, what the goal is, what the time frame is, the urgency, what the stakes are, other than like life and limb, which they often are in Mad Max movies.
Limb for sure.
Definitely. I want to get back to that. But yeah, it's just like the dramatic question is so muddy for most of this movie, scene to scene. And that's something that Fury Road never has to deal with. And Furiosa is just plagued by chronically. And that doesn't make a scene boring necessarily, but it does make it hard to find your footing in the structure of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's also why I love the opening sequence so much, is because it's just like, it's so clear. I've said before, I love action scenes and battle scenes where there's like clear strategy and tactics happening, and I can see that. So it's like, oh, the thing went down, we got to get it, we got to replace the wheel, and and wait, that's the thunder, but I thought we'd, and like sniper, I'm going to see, and oh man, but if I shoot him and take this out, then they won't get there, but as soon as they get there, then and I'm just like, yes. And then I think, once obviously like her mother is killed, and then it becomes a revenge story, and it's like, we want to ask what the dramatic question is and stuff. Well, that's very clear, but kind of like we talked about with Oppenheimer, I mean, it's clear that that's what she wants.
No. I'm stopping you. Sorry.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I have a sincere question. Does she want to kill Dementis and get revenge, or does she want to go home?
Right.
I truly don't know for most of the movie.
Both?
Right.
Both.
Question mark?
It seems like the answer is both, but the movie does not explicitly tell me which of those things she wants more. If there's a fork in the road and Dementis is that way and the green place is that way, I have no idea which way Furiosa would go. And that could be interesting thematically, except the movie does not make the movie about that. It kind of starts to make it about that. It sort of starts to coalesce around that choice. Do you want to go home and, basically get back to where you came from? Or are you going to drive toward revenge until it kills you or him or both? Like, I'm curious about that. And like Chris Hemsworth's closing monologue seems to be about that. But the movie isn't really circling that idea very closely or in the text for the vast majority of the runtime.
Right. And that is where I was getting to, which is to say that like, at least my headcanon was like, and just because I've seen other revenge stories like this, is just like, I want revenge. That's my main thing. Every choice I make from here on out is going to be about that singular goal. So if I seem like for years I am just like being a slave to this guy, or I'm doing whatever, it's all because that's my singular goal. That was just where my head was. So I just kind of made that assumption. And now that you're saying that, it's like, okay, sure, maybe that's not clear. But where I was getting to was, like we talked about with Oppenheimer, it's like, yeah, we maybe know where this is getting to 3 hours from now, but every scene along the way isn't supporting that theme or isn't supporting that bigger picture, right? And that's kind of exactly what you're saying there, which is that's kind of when I did feel the meanderiness, when it was just like, oh yeah, okay, there he is, we got to get him. Oh, we didn't get him. Okay. Now we're just going to kind of hang out for a little while before then it gets to the next, we're going to get them piece of it, rather than sort of the Mad Max energy, the Fury Road energy of just like everything is just barreling forward towards a singular goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about revenge stories. Maybe that's part of the Tarantino vibe I got, which, in Fury Road, as grotesque as the world is of Mad Max, there's not a whole lot of like torture porn or scenes of just like excruciating, elongated, like people hurting each other. It's just, there's like rapid action that can be violent and gruesome. But I feel like this scene has multiple sequences to just really be like, Dementus is so bad. He is, and it had that Tarantino thing of
Michael, they quarter someone. Michael's like, I don't remember this.
Yeah, I'm thinking specifically
Pull
of
them apart with motorcycles, Michael.
Yeah, mother being
Fury
torn.
Road, people are upside down, bleeding into bags, and they're drinking milk out of weird. Okay, sorry.
I think, but there's like scenes and even like chapters, sequences dedicated to like the climax is mother is like being crucified and poked with spears or whatever. Praetorian Jack is now gonna be dragged by a motorcycle till he's dead. We're drawing according to the person. It feels like it's trying to do this revenge movie thing, which is we're gonna spend a lot of time showing people be really gross and awful to like motivate the singular revenge story, as we're saying, the kind of the Kill Bill or whatever. This person's goal, their only goal throughout the whole movie is to kill this person. And because that is what this movie is, there'll be a lot of this movie spent on how awful this person is being horrible to people. And I think that can work in a movie, as we're saying, where it feels like the protagonist is this kind of brilliant, one single-minded person with a master plan to get revenge, and we're watching every step of their plan work towards that revenge. That's the compelling through line. But as we're saying, she also, and maybe more so, a lot of the movie I'm reading it as, she's trying to find a way to just get herself a car, get herself a vehicle to get back to the green place using the map on her arm. And so I lose the thread of the revenge plot for periods of time, but then it seems to come back where it's like, now we're going to show him torturing Praetorian Jack while she watches and hangs by her arm off the truck. I just felt like, in Mad Max Fury Road, yes, Michael, everything's grotesque and crazy, and there are people hanging upside down as blood bags, but it didn't feel like we lingered or built entire set pieces around the torture to establish any one character as like the person we're getting revenge on. It was just part of the universe around the propulsive action and the singular goal of getting home. And so the part of maybe the meandery or chapter Tarantino part of the movie that didn't work for me was trying to service that revenge mandate. But the revenge didn't pay off or feel satisfying when she finally did get him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think part of the problem for me is that everything looks super fake in these movies to me. So like the violence doesn't like bother me or stand out. But I think that like the structural things that we're talking about are very perplexing, because as you were saying, Trisha, I also was very unclear for a lot of it of like, I think she wants revenge, but she's also seems pretty fixated on getting home. And so like, which one do I want from her? And also I think like chapter to chapter, her desires change and her priorities change, which like I think is interesting in theory. Like there's a chapter or several chapters they blend together for me, but like her relationship with driver dude like is interesting and like learning
Tom
to care.
Burke, Praetorian Jack,
right? Yeah, driver dude. And like so, it's interesting to see like those detours happen. And again, if the through line that everything was hanging off of was clearer and stronger, I feel like those things would have meaning for me. But a lot of the time, similar to what you guys are saying, I wasn't sure what I should be rooting for her exactly, which then left me wondering, well, is she the protagonist in the way that, Tom Hardy isn't like really the protagonist of Fury Road, right? It's more about Furiosa in that. There were moments where I feel like the Chris Hemsworth character was far more interesting and had depth, and it seemed like they were trying to build some kind of character arc for him and his sort of ascent to power, but holding power is harder than he thought. And like, what does he actually want? And does he think of it?
It's kind of a bumbling idiot all the time.
Right. So like, it was just weird. I felt that was all really messy also. But there were moments where I was like, oh, I think this is his movie and I'm invested in him. And when he, leaves Furiosa, I'm like kind of sad because he's like, oh, I'm losing my daughter. Like there are these weird moments where I felt like I was supposed to be really with his arc, but then he disappears for a while. And like the time spent on things doesn't feel even or intentional. And that I think is just a narratively confusing flow in this movie.
Yeah, you mentioned, Michael, there's the chapter or the section that's all about the kind of relationship with her and the Tom Burke character. And that was my favorite part of the movie. And I think part of it, the reminded me of Fury Road, was we do spend the whole movie with people who care about each other, and that is an important reason why we're invested. Is we've got Furiosa and these women she's trying to shepherd to safety, and Tom Hardy's journey to kind of like from nihilist, I can't care about anybody, to like helping and caring. And like that requires the characters to be together for the entire movie and for most of them to survive. And for there to be like a relationship that grows and changes and builds over time. And I think it's another side effect of this chapter, almost like, multi-decade spanning story, is we can't hold on to any of these relationships. They usually are kind of like resolved by the end of a chapter or life moves on. And that's another through line that I was just missing.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I want to come back to Dementis, Chris Hemsworth's character, as like, definitely not a one-note villain and an interesting antagonist for sure, because I do think he's one of the most interesting aspects of the movie. But yeah, I just wanted to underline what you guys are saying about Tom Burke's character and that section of the film. I think there just, for me, thematically, is a missed opportunity, again, to make the thematic debate more clear in the text. And so, like, I like the idea of so she gets, snatched by Dementis's guys, and then, he kills her mother. And like, I like the idea of a young Furiosa dedicating herself to revenge on Dementis. And like, it's about revenge for her, even though her mom told her to go home, essentially, right? Like, find your way back. That's what you must do. You must go home. And she instead could become singularly focused on revenge. But then there's an opportunity once she meets the Tom Burke character for him to remind her about like, no, that's not like, if you do that, you become like everybody else or whatever it is, right? Like he could echo what her mother says to her and like echo that impulse to like, let that go. It's done now. Be at peace and just let's get out of here. Let's go back to the green place. And like could sway her back toward that goal. And then when he gets killed by Dementis, I'm going to talk really quick about a symbol, which is she has the map tattooed on her arm. And we know she's going to lose an arm in this movie. It's a great opportunity for a symbol. Okay. So her arm gets crushed in the chase, and then she gets strung up by that arm, and she's being tortured by watching, her only friend be murdered by her greatest enemy. Okay. So now she's faced with the ultimate choice, right? Like, and so she makes the choice in that moment to let go of the way home and the symbol of hope toward getting home. She rips her own arm off and loses the literal map to get home that was on her arm and replaces it with a weapon of war and revenge on her body, right? She builds herself a weapon instead to use, and then like dedicates herself to revenge for the third act before ultimately making the final climactic thematic choice. And you have all the pieces are there, but the filmmaking isn't signaling the meaning very clearly. Yeah. Like, it's wild to me that you have essentially this incredibly powerful symbol, and we don't see her rip her own arm off to get out of there and make that decision on screen. That's bonkers is thing number one. Thing number two, her decision to make a claw arm, mechanical arm for herself is also symbolic and thematic, or could be if it were more than brushed over in a montage. But it's not. It's just shown in a montage. And again, it's just like, I don't understand why these setups are really clearly here and all the pieces are there. The structure is there. Everything is there. But the thematic like undertones are so subsumed underneath the movie that like I just can't. They're barely detectable, even for someone like me who is peering at this with my theme glasses on as hard as I can. And it's allegory. This is like sci-fi. This is what sci-fi does best. It's all symbols and themes, like it could be. And for some reason, it's just like brushed over in a way that's puzzling. So puzzling. I can't believe they didn't show her ripping her own off on screen. Like, I want to at least see it on her face when she resolves to make that choice. That's a wildly strong thematic character choice to make.
When again, that moment is played from like Chris Hemsworth's perspective,
Right.
and that's another moment where it's
interesting
confusing
and
of like, wait, who's our character here?
Yeah, James Franco gets to spend 25 minutes taking his arm off. Like we can't give her 1 second.
This is what I'm saying.
Never seeing that movie. It's never going to happen. Okay, sorry, continue.
Oh, spoilers. Sorry. It's interesting. I was thinking about prequel stuff. There's an interesting conversation around prequels, which is like, oh, there's no stakes because we know who's going to survive, and where we know what's going to happen in some ways. And it's like, well, sure, but that's also true of anytime you watch a movie the second time, right? So it's not really about like what you know in the meta. It's about how the movie is handling it. And then we can talk about that, but then there's also just sort of what I'll call prequel stuff. The stuff that Solo does every 5 minutes, right? Like, here's how that happened. We're going to need a shorter name for you, like that kind of stuff. But then there's the good prequel stuff, which like Casino Royale does, which is like, how did this character become this way, essentially, right? And I feel like we do have that with Furiosa. And I do like that the arm is being treated as a symbol, like you're talking about, Trisha. I agree that I wish the filmmaker was doing it more, but it does feel like the prequel things that are happening here are happening for reasons. They are character reasons. They are story world reasons.
Sure.
Solo weirdly does that too. Like, that's the frustrating thing about Solo is like, here's why he doesn't trust anybody. He has to shoot his friend first at the end. Like, there's like doing the stuff where I'm like, yeah, you're building the character, but then also it's like, but here's how every single thing that you've ever heard about Han Solo happened in the course of a week.
Well, and if you're gonna take Furiosa all the way up to the very moment when Charlize Theron takes over, which is a wild decision.
Shocking.
But if you're going to do that, then connect it narratively and thematically. So in this movie, she gets the revenge piece, and then the next mission is get home. Like, again, make the goal, connect all the goals together more clearly. I don't know.
And then that's what I was going to say was talking about the things that the movie chooses to focus on and not focus on, to come back to the arm thing, is even just on like an action perspective. I was watching like the bullet farm sequence, the sniper rifle and the missile launcher. The finale of that sequence is Jack is driving the war rig and a crane like grabs it and starts pulling it, and then it's like going down a hole and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this should feel insane, and yet it feels like something that's sort of incidentally happening, that's like kind of almost happening in the background while we have to keep going. And like, I love when things happen sort of incidentally in a movie that should be brought more attention to, because it can make it feel like it make me really lean forward, but not this. Like, this should have felt like this is the big finale. And it's kind of how I felt about the finale of the movie too. I like that it was really small in scale, in scope, which is these two characters in the middle of nowhere. But I wanted it to feel like the movie was saying, this is the moment. This is the moment you should really be looking at. And it had those things that I was just like, why was there so much focus over here, but not enough over here? Last thing I'll say along that, and then I'll shut up, is I was thinking about like the efficiency of storytelling here, which obviously this movie's not super interested in, but like dialogue wise, it's so good. Like, the script is so good a lot of the time. Like, Jack's monologue about his parents or whatever, and like, I want to help you find this way. It's like 5 lines or something. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's like Roy Batty's like monologue at the end, right? Where it's just like, I said a couple lines and it's like the best monologue in history. And it's just like, oh man, we just had like such a character backstory moment with him and such a character building moment between them in like, I don't know, 25 seconds or something, like really quickly. And then the other end of that is when she loses the wig when she's a kid, and then the wig gets older. And then it's like, now she's 16 for 3 minutes of the movie, 4 minutes maybe, and then like she saves the thing, and they're like, you're the new whatever it's called, like you're in charge of this, here's the glove. And then it cuts to Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's like, why did you just spend an entire actor like of storytelling to just be like, she got this job, right? Like, so it's this weird, I think, imbalance of focus in this movie a lot of time, where it's like this thing that should feel big and important is kind of being brushed over, and then this thing which doesn't really matter and you could explain in 1 line in the next scene is just, or in 0 lines. Like, she's just cut to Anya Taylor-Joy, she has that job. Great. Like I know everything I need to know, right? So yeah, all those things were kind of coming together as you guys were talking.
I just wanted to say not to worry, because they didn't spend an entire actor on that. That's just their faces blended using AI. That's just the younger.
Did you not know that, Brian?
Yeah.
Well, who's the actor?
No, it's the young child actor and Anya Taylor-Joy just blended using AI.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, still.
Which is pretty effective.
Sure.
Like,
They spent all the budget on that. It feels like the effects. It's one of the best like face replacements I've seen.
Right.
That and Chris Hemsworth's nose.
Right.
Yeah.
His nose. Chris Hemsworth is awesome in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did not know that. That's really cool, and I appreciate that. But mentally, I had to like shift to a new age of Furiosa for a few minutes, and then now that energy is used, and now we're cutting to the next thing, and like, wait, why did I have to use that energy right there?
Yep.
something that's interesting also about the prequel sequel thing that I was thinking about when watching this is, when are prequels made to actually be watched before the sequel?
Right.
So like watching Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, like, I don't know. I mean, some people have done it and I guess it's fine. But I imagine that experience is weird when things switch and now you go from...
There are no twists in the original trilogy anymore.
Right, yeah. Like, so when is a prequel relying on the audience to already know certain things? And I don't know that this movie would work 100% better, just starting here, but it did feel like the kind of backstory, the kind of setting up each aspect of her character that, I don't know, like it made me at the end want to continue the story. Like it made me think retroactively that maybe I would be more into Fury Road, having seen the first half of this journey and backstory. Still has a lot of problems, but there was something to me that signaled like, oh, maybe this really was meant to be a first episode in that saga.
I thought a lot about the fact that I think if this movie had come out first, we may feel very different about it, because it would have been like, whoa, this crazy Mad Max world brought up to, today's blockbuster standards. Anya Taylor-Joy doing this, big blockbuster role. Like, what a crazy visionary director this is. But we got Fury Road first, and Fury Road, unlike all these problems we're pointing out, is such a tight movie. I watching it again, every conversation between the people journeying together on this trip is thematic, or has some meaning about their character arcs. There's character subplots where you've got Nicholas Holt's character along for the ride and his kind of redemption arc, and there's just every piece is doing something, and they're all working together, and they all have their own arcs, and they all climax at the same time, and it's just very satisfying. So I'm comparing this movie against that experience, which was so integrated and perfect feeling. But if all we had was Furiosa, maybe we'd be like, you know what? So refreshing to get like, what a wild movie from George Miller. Like, and so I think this movie may have worked better coming out first. And then if it was followed by Fury Road, this could never happen. You can never do this. But if somehow magically they were just swapped in time, maybe it would just be like the best sequel ever made to Furiosa is Fury Road. Because I do think Furiosa does work without Fury Road because it doesn't really depend on Fury Road at all.
Yeah. And
it only to his detriment, honestly.
True. And I just want to say also, I read that they were supposed to be filmed simultaneously, essentially, or back to back, these movies. And I think that would also have helped if there were like a shorter timeline between their releases and or if this was released first. But I do also just want to like stop and say, again, I do really like this movie and did watching it. And that I think that as an action movie, I wish it were thematically cleaner. But it is still really entertaining, and the action sequences are really exciting and like envisioned, really inventively. And the ambush at the bullet farm, I think, is again like probably has some bumps, but is cool. And there are so many scenes and sequences in terms of the action that are really harrowing, and I was absolutely leading forward and thrilled by. And part of the reason is because I think that this movie gets more into the world building and the exploration of like what actually is the wasteland, what kinds of things are here and can be here and exist, and what are the politics of trying to exist in this unforgiving universe. And so like the bullet farm is like never really in Fury Road. Like we hear a lot about the bullet farm and they just talk about it, but it's not really there. We don't know exactly what it is or what the relationships are between everyone. And I think part of that, the like roving gangs of warlords, which have always been a staple of the saga, and then the Citadel is an actual fixed location with an actual population that has the needs that a population has, and a king kind of that rules over them with sort of an empire. The dynamics of how all of that are navigated, I just think that in itself is fascinating. And I appreciate that this movie gets into it. And I think all of those things make Chris Hemsworth's character dimensional. How he handles his gang of people, how he tries to like vie for power and why, and like what everyone's, chess moves of how they're going to play this thing and try to come out on top. All of that as sort of, like power plays, political navigating, I think do give this a little bit more, make it feel more complex and a little bit more sophisticated in some ways.
I think that's really what I gravitated to in this movie was like, oh, there were like dynamics, and I'm kind of understanding those power dynamics between people so that when they're driving this big ugly machine across this big ugly desert, I understand the meaning behind it so that when they're getting attacked, I'm like, oh, okay, I have some kind of frame of reference. And so like some of these action scenes, like the big kind of middle set piece, I was honestly far more into than any of the ones in Fury Road because I feel like I understood what it meant.
Just
more.
To clarify, is that the one where Tom Burke is driving the war rig and like all the marauders are getting all over it and the war boys are defending? Yeah, and she's the stowaway. Yeah.
I felt like that was cool. I was like into that.
Really good sequence.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And I had some context and understanding of the world and what it meant to be doing any of these things. I also want to applaud that part of, because I think it could have backfired also when they started to explain this world. I was like, is this a world that's going to hold up if you try to explain it? But I feel like the way they navigated it and kind of kept it related to, as you were saying, the Chris Hemsworth character arc and the power and trying to like survive, not just in I hope I don't get exploded right now, but like, how do I fight for more in this world? I think connecting it to that worked for me.
Yeah, I also love the world building, and it's probably my favorite thing about this movie was just getting to understand this world more and see behind the scenes, see that guy up in the tower of Gastown painting and wearing a robe. It's just fun to see. There's so much you can tell there's stories behind all of these, kind of power centers of the wasteland. And, somebody wrote that it's another prequel about trade negotiations, but it's but it really is. But it's a great, as far as wacky a world as it is, it's also a well thought out wacky world that has, these necessities of weapons, energy, and food, and the three power centers own those things and trade them. That's cool. And, Michael, you're saying the action scenes meant more to you because you understood the context and why anything's happening. And I think it's almost like there's different goals with the two movies. In Fury Road, it's this, feminist allegory. And so it's literally a guy saying, "That's my property," and women trying to escape, the males trying to own them. And then that almost doesn't matter what this war rig is for usually, or what the bullet farm is for. This movie is very simple and kind of about this pure allegory. And I think it's cool that this movie is actually attempting to build a world out that makes sense. So yeah, I think they're going for two different things, and I think both of them are interesting. And I really like the action sequence we're talking about in the middle of the stowaway sequence, especially because of the way it introduces Furiosa to Praetorian Jack. The first time he sees her, after she's done this badass thing, like blowing up a car in front of them. That's a great moment, and I wanted more moments like that, because I think Fury Road had several of those, several great just character connection through action moments. And that was one of the great scenes. And the same thing happened at the Bullet Farm, where you had this great choice where Furiosa could take off, could just head home, leave Jack to sacrifice himself. But no, she turns around and goes back for him. It's a great character choice. And their connection in that scene is also really powerful. So yeah, those sequences where character once again came to the forefront. Yes, the world building's great, but I'm here for those connections and those characters. And I think when the movie feels lacking is that I'm not rooting for these people who are connected to each other. I'm just kind of seeing stuff unfold over time. Mm-hmm. And the world building is cool, but I want that connection, that immediacy of those action scenes.
Hard agree, Alex, because those moments with the character relationships were key for me also. And I do think that that's why the Chris Hemsworth character comes to the forefront in the movie. And again, starts to feel like it's about him, because he doesn't make expected character decisions, and he seems to have relationships. He does seem to form kind of a bond with her, right? When she's a kid. He could easily kill her in the blink of an eye or have her killed, and chooses not to do that. And there are a variety of sort of stated reasons where she's just being schlepped around in this cage with this tattooed history man for a while. And then he presents her as his daughter to Immortan Joe. There's dimensionality to it. And it seems like she isn't necessarily just an object for trade to him. Now, he does ultimately trade her away, but it feels kind of complex and interesting and complicated. And because there are people vying for, Immortan Joe is there, right? There's Gastown, there's Bullet Farm, there are other relationships, even if they're just quote unquote professional relationships that he develops with people in terms of, again, trying to succeed or win, that it makes him kind of sympathetic at times, right? If someone's trying to put a boot on his neck, like Immortan Joe does at a certain point, we're not necessarily going to think to ourselves, man, maybe Dementus is a good guy, but it's also maybe he's not the biggest bad in this world, right? Maybe there is a bigger bad. And as we've talked about many times, an anti-hero or an antagonist is interesting if there's somebody worse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like it's interesting where, thinking about Chris Hemsworth's performance, I was worried in the trailer when, you see the nose, you hear the voice, it could go lots of different ways. I feel like overall, I was getting that like depth and turmoil and complexity from the performance in the moments that really mattered. I feel like there were a few times though where it felt like he was maybe just like hitting the go big button over and over again when some of the scenes maybe needed less. And that could have been a direction thing. That could have been lots of different things. But I feel like those were the moments where I was like, it's a little bit of that Leo effect of like, I'm watching an actor have some fun acting right now. And that's not necessarily what I want to be feeling in this moment of the story, in this pivotal turning point thing. So yeah, I had a complicated relationship with Chris Hemsworth in this movie.
I will say, performance-wise, like I also just like when I see an actor do something I hadn't seen before, and I feel like he's someone where I haven't seen him do that much. So it was just like there's just something about like his swagger and the way he like talks and everything that I was just like, oh yeah, you are disappearing for me into this role. So I like that for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the role, the character felt like there was something going on there. Somebody who I guess who had lost his children, calling Furiosa his daughter, their strange relationship through time. But I think the problem was when it got to that ending, when they're face to face in the desert, I don't understand what I'm supposed to feel or like how this is the culmination of their strange relationship. Because her speech to him is just kind of, you stole everything from me and I want it back. And he says, do you have it in you to make it epic? And it's a cool line for the trailer, but like, how was that the culmination of their relationship or their interplay throughout the film? And so, yeah, it was that one other part of this movie that felt like it was almost there. It was half there. This interesting, not quite totally a villain, not maybe the worst person in this world, strange, almost like adopted father potentially relationship, but also she hates him because he killed her mother. So much there that the movie's like dancing around, but then when we get to that climactic moment, none of it falls into place in that kind of, like you said, Brian, that satisfying aha moment where you walk away from a movie of like, oh yeah, they nailed it. It all came together. The meaning was there. I got what I came for. When that moment ends, then it goes into the kind of like, who knows how she got her revenge? Maybe she did this,
right.
Maybe she did this, or maybe she planted a seed in his crotch and he lived a long time while a tree grew.
Yeah.
It's just like pure allegory, real in this universe. I don't know.
Yep.
It didn't land, and the movie's over, and it's like, oh damn! Like, what was that all about? Actually, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think, it's something that we've talked about a few times in the past year or so. Maybe a little bit with Dune Part 2, which is just like movies that feel like they should either be shorter or way longer. Like either this should be, a 90, 100-minute story, or it should be a 4, 5, 6 episode miniseries or something, right? And we're in this sort of weird place where there's no good avenue for that. So we've talked about before, and it was already talking about at the top of the episode. But it's like, yeah, it's like either make Dementis just kind of be a little simpler of a character with just enough complexity and sort of backstory to make him interesting, or give us the Dementis chapter of the movie or the Dementis movie or the whatever it is, to actually make it feel like we've spent enough time with that character to make the ending feel earned. And you can do that in 2.5 hours probably if, again, the focus is shifted from what it is in this movie. But it does feel like one of those things where it's like, it feels like that's like the broken record I keep having in my head now is like that movie should have either been shorter or twice as long or something in terms of like telling the story kind of the right way.
I feel that about
appropriately.
Everything these days. Anytime I see the runtime is 2.5 hours, that's like the zone of bad for me.
Right.
The zone of disinterest.
And Fury Road is 2 hours, so
exactly right.
There's a difference there.
Yep.
Yeah. And yeah, that final scene, I also feel, to be fair, I kind of felt that with Anya Taylor-Joy's side of it also. And and I feel like that may also just be a directing, editing, narrative structure thing like we've talked about. Like maybe like it feels like those actors are there having a fight, but there's their guns aren't loaded. They're trying, but like
Right.
the emotional buildup that they're trying to pay off isn't there. And sometimes a great performance can do all of that for you, but usually you need to have built it up in the storytelling, and it didn't feel like it was there for me.
I'll say there's even something with the way that scene is shot towards Anya Taylor-Joy.
Something is weird there. Yeah.
It's almost like the way she was either green screened or like the backlighting made her like head look particularly small. There's something about her where it was I was feeling the movie was like, this is her, like she is born into like Charlize Theron Furiosa. This is the origin. You know, she's on top of the hill, backlit by sun. This is the moment she became who she is in the next movie. And yet she looked like weirdly, I don't know, scrawny and kind of very different from Charlize Theron's Furiosa, you know, almost more childlike than ever. And so it was a very strange mismatch of, I could feel the movie telling me this is her, you know, big turning point climax that explains who she is in Fury Road. And yet I felt more distant from Fury Road as ever, partially just because of Anya Taylor-Joy's face is just, she has this elfin, you know, she's wonderful in like Robert Eggers movies as kind of these mysterious, sprightly characters. And she just can't compete with that Charlize Theron, just like, you know, just jawline or facial structure. I don't know, there's something about Charlize Theron's face in Fury Road that's so compelling. And it's like at a certain point, it's just casting. It's just, you can't help the shape of your head, you know, and in this movie, it's just like, it's meant to be the birth of Furiosa, and it doesn't feel like Furiosa. And it's just, nobody can help it if you don't have the stature for it, you know?
Sure.
I agree, except the weird thing is they have the same voice. Like when she first shaves her head and she comes out, like I feel like if you showed me that shot and heard like whatever 2 lines she says, I would just be like, oh, that's obviously Charlize Theron.
I noticed actually that moment where she's like walking into a room, it's behind her shaved head. Like it's almost felt like they like did something.
I was going to say,
did AI do that too?
It kind of sounded like they were just using Charlize Theron voice during one of those shots. Like, yeah, it really stood out to me as well. It's like, interesting.
A lot of interesting choices in this movie.
Indeed. Well, why don't we go around and say what lessons we're going to take from Furiosa? Trisha, do you want to start us off?
I suppose. I have some don'ts. I'm very sorry. I do like this movie, but I'm broken. Something's not right in my mind where there are things that I can't let go in terms of narrative, and narrative structure and storytelling things. And this is what you're going to hear from me right now. So I've already talked about how the arm, the symbol of the arm, isn't as clear as it could be in the text, despite actually being very powerful symbolically anyway. But for some reason, the filmmaking is not hitting that beat as clearly as it could be. But there's another symbol in this movie, which is her hair. So it's like you take the Furiosa character, and I understand that this movie was the backstory of the character was already totally fleshed out and conceived by the writers before Mad Max Fury Road. So this is Charlize Theron's like canon, or like at the very least it was already in place. So the arm, the hair, like those things were baked into the character, and how she got them in theory were baked into the character that we met in Fury Road. So just wanting to say that. But again, you have to make them symbols. This is a sci-fi story. This is an allegorical dystopian thing. And so if these things are going to be a part of the character, then, and you want to make them a part of the character, then you should make them thematic, make them beats, significant beats and symbols along the character's arc. So I love the decision with the hair at the beginning, where she walks into, she's got long hair because she lives in the green place. All the women are very feminine. They have long hair. And when she is brought as a young woman to Immortan Joe, she is taken to where the women are, these other very feminine women, and she sees immediately the future she does not want for herself. And she understands, oh, there is going to be sexual violence toward me if I stay here as a woman. So she immediately, understanding that she's probably going to be assaulted at some point, it's amazing foresight, but in exactly the way that she was assaulted. Not that she was going to be assaulted. Anyone would know that. But like exactly in the perfect way that she was going to be. But anyway, so she cuts off her hair.
Rictus is like playing with their hair at least.
Yeah,
so there's some
it is there. So she cuts off her hair and makes a wig and then uses that to escape. It's genius. I love it. It's a symbol. It's powerful. It's amazing and perfect. Love that. Then after she's discovered to be a woman, so she takes off her helmet and she puts it on the hood of the war rig, and long hair flies out. And that's how Tom Burke's character knows she is a woman. And I don't understand that. If you have been hiding your identity as a woman among men for a decade, how long has it been? I don't know, at least 6 to 8 years, I assume you've been hiding your identity. Why not keep shaving your head? Why do you have long hair again? It's very confusing logistically, but also symbolically, it robs the meaning out from under the character journey. So that's confusing. Then at the end, because you've already stolen the meaning out from that symbol of her hair, when she cuts it at the end, it no longer means anything.
Right.
Like, again, it's that montage where it's like, here's my mechanical arm, here I'm shaving my head, but I don't know what those things mean thematically or as character choices anymore. So, like, what if when she takes her helmet off, or she's revealed as a woman in some other way, she still basically has super short hair. It doesn't have to be a totally bald shaved head, but short and tidy enough to quickly put a helmet over. Right?
She has a wig she carries with her at all times, and then she puts it on. And
But she could easily be revealed as a woman in some other way. Her voice, right?
Yeah.
She has to say something to Tom Burke's character. Her voice reveals her as a woman. Okay, I get it. But she still has short hair, but he knows she's a woman. Okay, I get it. It's great.
Looking at her face for more than half a second.
Sure. Anything. Like, Mulan, they do it where she has an injury, like on her abdomen, right? And so then like a doctor finds out that she's a woman. Whatever. That would also be an easy way to do this in this universe. Just do it like Mulan does. Anyway, but then, again, if you're doing a thematic journey for the character, she could make a choice to grow her hair out again, right? Because she becomes like safe and she's met the Tom Burke character and he's created a safe place for her to be who she is. Logistically, I don't understand how he did that because there's not a scene where she comes back and she's like, hi, I'm a woman actually. And everyone's like, that's fine. You're great at cars and you can just drive them now. And we don't mind that you're a woman actually. So I wish that scene were in the movie, but even though it's not, okay, great. So now she's allowed to be herself. And also she's developing a relationship with Immortan Jack or Praetorian Jack. And that's all like thematic. She's making a choice to pivot towards going home again. She's starting to become like more like her mother and the women in the green place. She's going to grow her hair out at that point. So we could kind of see a choice to let her hair grow. And her hair could be kind of longer-ish by the time they do their escape plan. And then you could even have a moment where, they're trying to get away from Dementus and his guys in their escape gone wrong. And somebody like grabs her by the hair because her hair's long now and drags it there. And so then after Jack dies, she makes the choice to cut her hair off again because it's a symbol, because she's choosing revenge and to go the way that she was, but like hiding who she is and denying her past and like all the hope and the symbols of everything that the green place represents in terms of like femininity and safety and the softer sides of humanity. But they didn't do any of that. So I just thinking about sci-fi universes and allegories and symbols, I just want to praise this movie in some ways because there are moments when it absolutely like this stuff is in here. I'm allowed to nitpick it because it's in here to begin with. So it's in here, and I praise that. And also, I feel like there are some missed chances to tie it up a little more neatly, or to make the symbols a little bit more clear about what they mean for the character.
Yeah, for sure.
So often when Trisha does her lessons, I'm like, they should have hired Trisha to give script notes. If Trisha had given script notes,
George
this movie would
Miller
have
is
been
a
perfect.
very good, you know what I'm saying? Like, listen, he's been around a long time.
But truly, like, yeah, there's so many films that, you know, after the fact, I wish this analysis could have been presented to the director. And yeah, just like there's
Thank you,
so many
Alex.
movies are so close.
I'm extremely hireable if anyone is listening.
They just need a Trisha.
And I often find, you know, often it's Trisha, but also just in general, what we do here is like, why didn't that thing feel quite right? You know, and then it's like a breakdown like that. It's like, that's why, because the part of my brain that's like knowing these things are happening, but isn't quite be able to name them, missed something, like something didn't quite click and something didn't quite work. And then obviously hearing them said out loud is like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And speaking of symbols, it was also strange to me. One of the clearest symbols was the pit of the peach or plum or whatever that was, and that was also interesting. It was used in kind of just practical ways as like sticky stuff for making her wig, I think. But that was also an interesting, strange symbol that I couldn't quite track what it meant through all its various uses and the way it was kind of kept in her hair.
Well,
any thoughts on that, Trisha?
They're kind of doing a double symbol that I don't think they need, right? They're doing like the peach pit and the tattoo of the home. And it's
Right.
the peach pit kind of, once she loses the arm, needs to be like, but I also want to go home. But again, I think that's just where the film is not clear in its own mind about what Furiosa wants or who she is. And I think, again, you would have had to finesse the tattoo on her arm a little bit to make it super clear. So you would have had to say, okay, she got the tattoo in the green place. Maybe they tattoo children in the green place so that if they ever get lost, they can find their way home. And it's like a coming of age ritual in the green place. And we could kind of see her receiving that from her mother or the elders or something. And then, of course, when she loses, so then you don't need the peach pit at all, right? But because she gives it to herself and again, she loses it by the end, it just becomes kind of like they're doing sort of a double symbol that essentially means the same thing. The other thing is her name, which they just named her that, I guess. Like, I don't know. That's wild to me. Like, they were like, Furiosa.
It made sense in this universe.
30 seconds into the movie, Furiosa, come here. And I was like,
There's Valkyrie. It's like, whatever.
it's like,
There should have been a scene where they were like,
incredibly
you need to be
symbolic.
angrier. You're a Furiosa.
There's a way to do it. Because it should be a self-chosen moniker, essentially, again, that is about a character thing.
Right.
Like, her real name should be, I don't even care what it is. Don't give her one. Don't give her one as a child. Like, maybe she has one, but we never hear what it is, and she never tells anyone what it is. It's her
Like
secret
Max.
name.
We don't hear Max say his name
Totally,
until the
sure.
end of the Fury Road.
She doesn't need to have a name when she's a child, but then later on, when she becomes Imperator, they're like, we need to give you a name, and they give her a name or she chooses it. And it needs to become, again, a beat on the character journey, because names are that way in literature. We are trained to think of names as being symbolic. And so the fact that she's just named Furiosa from the outset was astounding to me.
Because also you can also use the denial of her original name, or the refusal to tell it, or the letting go of it. This could all be used symbolically also.
Yes.
Yeah. Alex, what's your lesson?
I think probably, just thinking about why did Praetorian Jack feel so great when he came into this movie? It's such a breath of fresh air. Tom Burke, I really like Tom Burke. I haven't seen him in much, but I liked him in this movie a lot. But I think, I think that he was functioning as like, I think when you're in a universe like this, like a Mad Max universe, most people are just awful, and most of the universe is awful. You know, it's like the worst place you could imagine being. And But I think what helps me enjoy a movie in a grotesque, awful place are characters who are striving to be good despite being born into the worst possible dystopian future. And I think when a movie goes on too long without any characters kind of serving that function, that beacon of like, why go on, why have hope, why do anything, I do start to kind of get bored with dystopian worlds and just, it's like, oh yeah, that's really awful too. Oh yeah, that's really gross too. Oh yeah, that sucks as well. And I think
Children of Men is your favorite movie.
Yes, but like the central characters are like these beautiful human beings, And I think that's once again why I enjoy Fury Road, is because you do have this kind of band of women who are working together to get out of there, and all the women are capable. They're not just purely damsels in distress passengers of Charlize Theron. They all have their kind of archetypes and different attitudes towards, do they want to go back? What do they think about the green place? Yada yada. Anyway, we're on a journey with people that are worth caring about, and I think Praetorian Jack is such an important addition to this movie because he essentially gives Furiosa, like you were saying, Trisha, kind of a taste of like, oh, life can still be good. There are good people. There is something worth getting home for, fighting for. And so, yeah, I like him in this movie. I like the relationship in this movie. And I kind of wish more of the movie took place in that time period of their relationship, because his kind of mentoring of her, almost kind of like, she gets to the point where he's like, now you're ready to drive your own war rig. I'll give you whatever you need to go home. Like, I think that journey, that was where I was leaning forward. I cared. And I think if more of the film had those kinds of relationships running through it, then I wouldn't have zoned out maybe as much in those earlier chapters. I would have been compelled because there's something we're moving towards, somebody who's worth caring about, who cares about her, even amidst all this awfulness.
Yeah. I agree. And it's interesting. Maybe one day I'll watch Fury Road again, because like I just didn't care about anyone in that movie at all, because the world was like, you guys, why do you want to live? It's clearly awful. You should all just die right now. But I feel like there is something really true about the statement that you said of like, we want to be with characters who care about each other. And like, that is like really strong. And I think is an easy thing to overlook. And anyway, that's
right. Because I like, as you're saying, Trisha, I like really dark movies, like Children of Men, but I think, if there's not characters that I care about at all in a dark world, then it is just kind of that pure bleakness, pure darkness, and it's just like, okay.
Because the reason in Children of Men, let's watch Children of Men again. The reason the world is so dark is to like accentuate the arc of hope. Like they're trying to fight against this world that is so
it's
oppressive.
The contrast.
Yeah. That is what the story is. And so, if you don't have, gotta counteract one with the other, because that's what a struggle is.
I mean, that is what Fury Road is doing in the long run. It just doesn't feel that way moment to moment the way Children of Men does.
To borrow Trisha's language, there's something wrong with me. It's a me problem. It's just my brain.
Yeah. And I will say, even early in Fury Road, because we don't meet all those women in the first act.
That would have helped me, because I didn't like anyone until that happened. Right. But continue.
But even early in the first act, there are these kind of moments that make me lean forward. When Immortan Joe kind of storms into the like women's space, and you have like the older woman who's there with the shotgun, who's saying like they don't belong to you, and they have scrawled on the walls like, who destroyed the world. Anyway, there's already glimmers of like this really interesting other palette here of this strange sanctuary amidst the hydroponic gardens that is different enough, and this strange vision of hope as contrasted with just the blood bags and such. And I think that movie from the beginning gives me those contrasts that makes me lean forward. And there's long periods of this movie where it is just motorcycle gangs and young Furiosa as prisoner that don't have that contrast with the light.
Yeah. Yep. Word. Brian, what's your lesson?
Yeah, I mean, Alex touched on this already a little bit, but there is something about the lore and as you said, world building of this franchise that just feels like confident and cohesive, and there's something there that it just makes me lean forward. And I was thinking about the fact that Fury Road ends with a quote from the first History Man. It's not the Bible or Aeschylus or Shakespeare, right? It's just like no, it's opening with a quote from someone within this story world. I can't think of other movies that do that. It's usually like a sort of Blade Runner, like here's like a description of what the story world is, right? Or here's a quote from St. Augustine or whatever it is. But it's just like the movie sort of having the confidence to be within itself, to be a part of itself, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just find myself constantly pulled into the world when they're like, this is the third fortress of the wasteland, or, you know, the gas wars happen and then the water war happened. I'm like, yeah, I'm learning so much about Australian history here. This is amazing. And I think there are other franchises, like maybe like Star Wars in the later George Lucas days comes to mind, where it just kind of feels like they were just coming up with, where does Chewbacca come from? Hold on, let me get the Scrabble bag. Kashyyyk, 4 Ys, you know, 3 Ys, sorry, or whatever it is. And it's, you know, a franchise that takes place in an entire galaxy, you're going to have to do that once in a while. But I do love things like Lord of the Rings or Song of Ice and Fire, where it just feels the creator just spent their entire life coming up with this world, and they know the history, they know what happened 6 generations ago, whether you want to know it or not. It's there in the appendices of both those franchises. And I just called books franchises, both of those book volumes. And yeah, that both suspends my disbelief, because I do feel like I am watching like a piece of history. I do feel like I'm watching something that is supposed to have happened, like a dramatization of something that happened. And it just makes me lean forward. It's the distant hills thing we've talked about, where it's sort of like there's, for every one piece of information I'm being given, I know there's 10 other pieces of information back over there that the creators of this world know that I don't know, and it makes me want to know. And yeah, for a franchise that I don't know super well, I've seen all the movies. I've seen the original movies once, and I've seen Fury Road a couple times, and this movie twice. I still feel like I feel like there's such a richness to the world building, to the lore, and I feel like the people making this franchise care about it and have respect for it, and don't just feel like they're just kind of pulling ideas out of a hat whenever they need one.
Totally. Well, and so I feel like that kind of dovetails into what I want to talk about a little bit in terms of world building and pulling me into, you know, the distant hills phrase that you have, and feeling like this world is a thing that exists and therefore is a thing that matters, and what people do inside of it matter. Visual effects are a big part of creating a story world.
I wondered when we get back here.
Movie like this. Yeah. And I don't even really know how to talk about it. And there isn't a lesson here, like saying do good visual effects isn't useful. There's lots of reasons why visual effects end up the way they are. But this movie had me thinking about the relationship between like style and visual effects. And so yeah, we have Fury Road as an example, where there's a ton of visual effects in Fury Road, but it's being used intelligently, and a lot of the time is complementing real stunts, real things. So you get the feel, the dirt, the grittiness of the world that comes across, and that anything that looks fake still feels like it's part of this heightened style and feels cohesive in the world. You can have things like Marvel films. I've been rewatching like pieces of the Marvel films, which are super bouncy. And I think at any given moment, you could easily say these visual effects don't look real, but they're still existing in a style and in a universe that's telling the story but on a completely different side of the spectrum than a Dune Part 2, where everything feels like it's really like it's heavy and it's weighty and it's dirty. Like it's real. Do you get it, everybody? Feel the realness.
You can barely see it through all this dust.
Exactly. And so it's just interesting. Visual effects are such a huge part of filmmaking now. It's interesting to see these different styles of how they're used, and that it's really not as simple as we're going for a photorealistic image, but like it's part of the visual style of the storytelling. And for me, seeing that fall apart in some pretty egregious ways in this movie, there are some shots that are beautiful. There are a lot of shots that are beautiful, but there were some that really stood out of like, oh, I could have done this on my computer in 20 minutes. Like, that's how it feels. I don't know what happened.
When they first get to Dementus's camp, like there's that guy with the kind of dreadlocks or whatever talking to Furiosa. There's some shots really early on where it's just like his motion isn't seemingly matched with his background.
Yeah.
In kind of wild shots like that.
I feel like there's some like wide shots, when they're dragging around Praetorian Jack, and that whole scene. And some of the wide shots you can see, I was watching like people on the side. This, again, I'm not a normal person. I look at the people on the sides of the frame to see what's happening. But like Elsa Pataky, I forget how you say her name, Chris Hemsworth's wife, who's also one of the characters in this, like you can see her walk and then speed up a little bit and then slow down, then speed up a little bit to get her out of the way of some of the other motorcycles because they need to hit certain. So it's like these weird things that it feels like it was kind of in between style and just barely trying to make it work. And for me, it was just interesting watching that kind of degrade my belief in the story world. And I guess that's obvious, but I think for me, the takeaway was it's not necessarily about photorealistic imagery equals belief in the story world. It's how you use the style and the tools. Everything Everywhere All at Once has a lot of visual effects that aren't trying to look real. They're trying to tell a story and create a feeling. And so anyway, just interesting seeing this entry into this franchise that's sort of known for having this beautiful, like kinetic, visceral style.
And still has amazing stunt work.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If we haven't said that yet.
Yeah.
Incredible stunt work.
Yeah. Just interesting to see how style can affect your belief in the story world.
Something I remember thinking about way back in like the late 90s, early 2000s when Phantom Menace came out. And it was like, okay, there's a lot of like bad CG in that movie. But I remember the time being like, yeah, but the whole movie looks like a cartoon. So whatever. Like it just kind of all looks like, and maybe I don't know if I'd feel that way now looking at it, but I just felt like, I remember at the time feeling like the whole movie looks super colorful and super kind of not real. So when the specific thing doesn't look real, it just feels like it's part of that world. And then you go over to the first couple Harry Potter movies where the world is trying to be more lived in, more kind of dark, more kind of gritty. And then when a CG troll shows up, you're like, what is that? That looks wrong, And I feel like Fury Road does a really good job, as you're saying, of feeling like whatever you're seeing is consistent. Like, and I can't always tell. I'm like, I know that guy didn't just blow up, but I don't know when the real person stopped and when the whatever. And Furiosa, like I said at the top, just feels like there are moments that are awesome and everything I want from a Mad Max movie. And then there are moments where I'm just like, wow, like that just looks like I'm, again, just a person in front of a screen.
Yeah. File this again under making movies is hard.
Yep.
The main lesson always. Well, I want to hear what you guys have been watching. Before we do that, quick reminder that next week we will be back talking about A Quiet Place Day 1, another prequel. This time coming after 2, right? There was Quiet Place and then part 2, and now we're going to Day 1. I'm very curious to see what that's like, because that's another one. That's one where I'm like, I don't know that knowing what happened is going to make my enjoyment of those movies better.
Sure.
Like that, I feel like not knowing is part of what makes those scary. But
yeah, I think prequel stuff will be an interesting conversation with that one.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it will be fun because aliens are fun.
You heard it here first, folks.
It's the optimistic read. Yeah, I can get behind that. Cool. So, guess next week, Quiet Place Day 1. But for now, what else have you guys been watching? Trisha, what have you been watching recently?
Okay, I'm a little torn because 3 days from now, we're recording this on June 25th. 3 days from now, Fancy Dance is coming out on streaming, which is a movie I saw at Sundance in 2023. So that movie premiered well over a year ago. They had a really hard time finding distribution for it, and it is finally dropping on June 28th, streaming. And I cannot recommend it more highly. It's Lily Gladstone. She's incredible in it. It was one of my favorite movies at Sundance 2023, and I don't want to tell you too much about it. It's like a crime story, but like really just a family drama about Lily Gladstone and her character's niece, and it's just beautiful. Strong recommend from me. But because I also want to hit the Furiosa and Fury Road audience, the other movie I'm going to recommend is Monkey Man, which I saw recently, and wow, did I like it. It's really great. So Dev Patel's directorial debut, also starring him, and it's like sort of a John Wick revenge action movie, and God, it's a joy to watch. Like, it's just really great. The direction's really impressive. The action is amazing. It's essentially just an Indian movie. Like, the whole thing takes place in India. Dev Patel's character is sort of like a scrappy nobody fighter who is, comes from absolute abject poverty, and he's trying to get to like a criminal boss who killed his family. And like, it's compelling as hell. It's great. It's so great. The action sequences are amazingly shot, and stunt work's incredible. The editing's amazing. It's just really fun. Alex, it's for you if you love RRR. Like, it's
I've been curious about it, and I feel like I sensed like both elation and also mixed reactions to it. But now that I have your
go with the elation. Roll with it.
Sold.
Michael, if you like John Wick, it's also for you. Brian, I sense you might have seen it already.
No, but I was definitely looking forward to
watch it. Go watch it. Everybody. Yes.
We should all go watch it, is what I'm hearing.
I'll go watch it with you again. It rules so hard. Also, Dev Patel is the hottest person I've ever seen. I just need to say that. It's truly ridiculous. So, strong recommends Monkey Man.
Nice. Okay, very cool. Alex, what about you?
So I was traveling last month and on airplanes, and I finally watched American Fiction because it was on the plane.
Yay!
And it was like, I want to see this movie. And I loved it.
Yeah.
American Fiction. Jeffrey Wright is such a treasure. What a wonderful actor. And, it was funny. I think that title, and maybe just like the poster, I don't think I saw any trailers. I figured it was a period piece, like that took place in like the 70s or something. And so I was actually really pleasantly surprised when it was just about an author today in modern day dealing with kind of these interesting modern themes. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed it. I loved the thematic discussions it was having. I loved all the actors in it. It was just a kind of a delight. And it was also had that fun sort of meta vibe of adaptation, a movie about a writer. Anyway, yeah, just American Fiction. I loved it. Go see it.
I love it when other fields of art clearly stand in for the filmmaking business and the filmmaker who's making the movie.
Right, like the book industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Really, really enjoyed it.
Cool. Brian, what have you been watching?
I want to quickly mention that Living, the Ikiru remake starring Bill Nighy that I recommended last year, also has Tom Burke in it.
That's right. Oh, yeah. That's also why I love him.
But I watched all of Dairy Girls, which is a comedy about a group of girls and one boy who live in Derry in Northern Ireland in the mid-90s. And of course, go to Catholic school. So there's like that whole thing. And if you know your history, this was at the end of the Troubles, the big militaristic political conflict, which obviously plagued Northern Ireland for decades. And it's a really kooky show. So a lot of times the like political unrest is used as like a backdrop for these very silly things that the girls are dealing with in their like day-to-day dumb life. And it's just like, oh, but there's like men outside with guns. But then the show also really knows how to pull the emotional rug out from under you, and sometimes using the state of the world, but also just sometimes using the drama of the characters. So it's just a show where you never know if you're going to get a light and fluffy episode or just an emotional gut punch out of nowhere. And it's so affecting. Our producer, Vince, who is one of many people I've heard recommend it, I texted him after it was done and I said, I don't know why, but my face is wet. And it's 3 seasons, and it was always going to be 3 seasons. And it like time-wise wraps up around historically when when that stuff is wrapping up, and so it just feels like a complete package. It's so good, and I like feel like I want to watch it again already. And it's on Netflix right now.
Nice.
Very nice. Yes, I've heard good things. I'm in a household where someone was watching it, and I heard good reviews from that. But I've not.
Well, that's the thing I was talking about with you and the other member of your household when I was like, oh, there's a show that's really good. And you're like, well, what is it? And I was like, oh, you have to wait and see.
Yeah. And now we're here.
Yeah.
Circle.
Was it worth it? Probably
fold. Nice. So I recently watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime. My relationship with this IP, I guess, is what it is now, is weird.
Everything's IP.
Yeah. I remember the movie coming out. I didn't see it when it came out, but the trailers were everywhere, and it was like such a big deal. And then I finally saw it, and I was like, that's what it was like. That was a big deal. But I guess it was kind of fun to watch them fight each other. It's like a married couple, right? They're both secret agents, and twist, they have to shoot at each other. It's like the whole thing. That's the movie. So then when I heard that Donald Glover was developing a show version, I was like, I'm intrigued, interesting. And Phoebe Waller-Bridge was originally supposed to be the Jane, because in this, they have anonymous identities. It's John and Jane. But she dropped out for reasons. And then it came out, and I didn't really hear anything about it. So I was like, I'm probably going to skip it. But then one night we're like, let's watch it. And it's a really interesting show, and not at all what I would have expected from an adaptation of the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie. It's like a relationship drama set in a world of killers and action, where they're getting into like really real kind of raw like relationship stuff. Like you would see on just a normal like romantic drama show, but also then occasionally it's like, oh, we have to deliver a bomb, or it's happening because we need to kidnap this guy from this art gallery, and I gave you the signal, and that meant I should stab him. Why did you stab him? We both stabbed him with this thing. You never listened to me. Like what? They do a lot of really interesting using spy stuff to pull out relationship drama things. And it's fun to see Donald Glover do things. Maya Erskine, I had not seen in anything, and then happened to also watch Pen 15 and this at the same time. And I was like, oh, she's cool. So their chemistry is really cool. The way it's directed is really interesting. Some of the time it kind of annoyed me and made me be like, okay, but like, let's go. Like, all right, let's get a move on. But overall, it was a really interesting adaptation of what was a fun, silly popcorn action blockbuster into a fun relationship, deep life probing character drama that also has some fun action in it. So overall, I would recommend it. Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Amazon Prime. Well, this has been our conversation about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. Next week, as I said, we'll be back with Quiet Place Day 1. We've talked about all the Quiet Places. It's kind of fun that we've gotten to do an episode on the entire franchise there. Twister we're going to talk about, because Twisters is coming out, which is, I can't believe they made a sequel to that, and I'm super excited about it.
It's an IP now, too.
Yeah.
It's an IP now, too. We're going to be doing some Deadpool versus Wolverine with a couple special guests. That's going to be fun. And then we're going to talk about the Alien franchise, because they're still making Alien movies. and I'm probably going to keep seeing them as long as they keep making alien movies. So
Yep.
I can investigate that. So yeah, stay tuned. Sequel Summer. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you, patrons, for supporting this show and making it possible. Thank you to our producer, Vince Major. Thank you to our editors, Jose Gomez and Vicky Lewis. I'm Michael Tucker. I've been joined today by Trisha Rand, Brian Bittner, and Alex Calleros. All of our Twitter handles are in the show notes. Send us a tweet and say hi, and we will see you in the next episode for A Quiet Place Day 1.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.